The last chance to learn it is slipping through my fingers now. I see exactly what I have to become. I step across that line without a sound. Obviously, a wealthy family had spacious accommodations, spacious enough that Seol-Hwi could practice in the side room attached to his bedroom. I need to learn the wind god skill. He's neglected the technique for a while because he was occupied with pondering the perfect movement for a while. But he couldn't ignore this ability. It was the best of the skills he had. 4 Peaks Demonic Martial Arts Table Wind God. Right arrow N, neutral down down, a 4.5x speed. He didn't know what neutral meant, and he definitely didn't know what 4.5x speed meant. The only clue he had was how fast he saw the AI use the technique. But doing this, mimicking the AI, didn't make him feel anything. Unlike in the past, he couldn't use the skills even though he knew how. It seems like my body needs to be moving ahead. Seol-Hwi went back to the start. Judging from the AI's unusual speed, Seol-Hwi would need to be twice as fast, or at least that was how he interpreted it. Then there was that neutral he needed to deal with. Ha! Same action, faster movement, small changes for a little extra speed. Seol-Hwi tweaked it dozens, even hundreds of times. He had to have been at it for at least half an hour. He could hear voices, thanks to the hearing skill he'd learned during his training. He really came? What are you doing? You need to stop this. Where is he? Seol-Hwi glanced out the window and saw people moving around, but the voices died down after a while and he picked up his sword again. But then Seokdu showed up. Did you hear that, squad leader? Hear what? Yeah, the workers here were saying that Miss Ju's future husband is coming here. Everyone is curious about what kind of man he is. Marriage. Yeah, that's why everyone is going to check him out. Do you want to go, squad leader? Why would I? He was in the middle of struggling with the wind god technique. He had no intention of taking a break. I knew you would say that. But they say he's from Mount Hua. Won't we be able to fight? Mount Hua? Did you just say Mount Hua? Yes, that's what I heard. Let's go. Huh, Seol-Hwi was interested now. Let's go see his face. In the center of the back garden was the Life Force Pavilion. The name referred to the engraving of history. Ju Wanjil liked pottery, so he named his most beautiful pavilion after it. One of the staff was pouring tea, carefully watching the air. Ju Wanjil and Ju Seol-Hwi sat on one side. Zheng Muyon sat on the opposite side. The idea that all of them were gathered here to promote her marriage made Ju Seol-Hwi deeply uncomfortable. If I had known you were here, I would have found you sooner. No girl would expect you to come over without a word. Ju Seol-Hwi made her opinion known as soon as she sat down. Despite that, she kept her face as calm as possible. I apologize, my lady. I wanted to see you so much that I asked Elder Ju to let me in. Zheng Muyon didn't take her comment seriously, so Ju Seol-Hwi prepared another biting comment, hoping to get the reaction she wanted. Don't apologize, Ju Wanjil interjected. I chanced upon young Lord Zheng on the way home and asked him to join us. I see. Next time I'll make sure to check if they came deliberately or by chance before I speak. Seol-Hwi. It's fine, Lord Ju. You don't need to say anything. I'm obviously in the wrong here. Zheng Muyon smiled calmly, as if he expected her reaction, and smoothly changed the subject. They say the 2 most scenic locations in Chenggi are Hakesin Mountain and Lord Ju's mansion. I see the rumors were not exaggerated. Oh ho ho ho, I'm so embarrassed. I just like to show it off to people. I think the rumors got out of hand. So humble. Even after nurturing such wonderful things, Lord Ju found time for charity. Ho ho ho, young Lord Zheng is really giving this old man far too much credit. Zheng got along well with Ju Wanjil, unlike his granddaughter. Zheng Muyon sipped his tea and looked around. He noticed a crowd of people a little ways away. Judging from their numbers, they had to be the mansion staff that had come out to see him. He saw 2 men and he frowned. But has the sect leader's health improved? Didn't you say something about an unhealthy stomach last year, so after helping the sect he went to rest? Ah, right, Zheng Muyon nodded. It seems it will take some time for him to get better. Weren't we told he would be fine a month ago? Yes, everything will be fine. Ju Wanjil cocked his head, puzzled. Ju Seol-Hwi looked confused as well. My lady, Zheng said, his voice suddenly cold. I promise I'll contact you before I come next time. He stood and turned. I think I just found someone unexpected. Hey, squad leader, didn't that woman seem interested in me? Seokdu pulled a face. Seol-Hwi didn't care. Seokdu. Yes, squad leader. Is that man really from the Mount Hua sect? Yes, what about it? Who? What? Who told you that he was from Mount Hua? I think he was around here somewhere. Siakdu looked around and scratched his head. Right, Seol-Hwi nodded. And didn't you say you would always be able to recognize Mugi? Of course, how could I miss him? Is that so? Seol-Hwi turned back to the pavilion. Status Mugi, first disciple of Elder Beacon Health. 400,000 internal energy. 120,000 combat power. 1.68 million if that wasn't false. It seemed Mugi had stolen a quite famous identity. The 1.68 million combat power really stood out. However, status, Seol-Hwi Hidden Truth Squad Vice Leader, Health, 700,000 internal energy, 1.2 million peak Grandmaster combat power, 5.9 million. It felt like the first time Seol-Hwi had his opponent outmatched. It was an interesting feeling, but he didn't linger on it. How do we? Seol-Hwi was concerned that if he used demonic martial arts to fight Mugi, he'd forfeit the potential mission from Seol-Hwi. He wanted the rewards. As long as his cover wasn't blown, it would probably be better for Seol-Hwi to follow Mugi and then subdue him. It was then he felt Mugi's gaze on him. Or maybe not. When he looked closer, it looked like the man's gaze was slightly off to the side. He was looking at Siakdu, not Seol-Hwi. Squad leader, you think it's him? Siakdu seemed to have noticed his gaze as well, but Seol-Hwi didn't answer. It was better to stay silent for now. Huh, seriously, didn't I tell you I know just how he acts? Look at that guy, he isn't the one. Seol-Hwi saw Zhang Muyong stand up. Did he notice something? Zhang Muyong and the Zhu family walked towards them. There are some interesting people here. The fake Zhang Muyong looked at the two of them. They are my guests, Seol said. Guests? The man's face hardened. Your jokes are out of line, he said coldly. People like them aren't easy to find in Chenggi. He is talented enough to stand out in Chenggi. He even stands out to young Lord Zhang too, right? They don't stand out because they're strong. Zhang looked Seol-Hwi and Siakdu in the eyes. Am I wrong, brothers? Seol-Hwi didn't answer. He let Siakdu handle this. Ha ha ha, we are kind of special people. The lady invited us here after seeing our martial arts. Ah, is that so? The man narrowed his eyes but soon turned to Seol-Hwi with a relaxed expression. He must know martial arts. Seol-Hwi could sense the demonic energy in the man's eyes. He couldn't recognize the level of martial arts, however. Mugi seemed to be hiding his demonic energy and using a normal cultivation method instead. How rude, Seol stepped forward. What are you doing to my guests? Don't get me wrong, my lady, he looked back at her. I just wanted to greet them and find out who they are. He smiled brightly, but no one was buying. The fake Zhang Muyong realized his cover was falling apart and tried to bow out, but Seol-Hwi was a step ahead of him. Did you think we wouldn't find you? Mugi froze. Did you think hiding your demonic energy and pretending to be someone else would work? Seol-Hwi took a shot in the dark and was rewarded with Mugi's flustered expression. You should have hidden better, hidden well enough to deceive everyone, but even then, Seol-Hwi drew his sword. I would have found you. A great opportunity. Found a weakness in Mugi. How would you like to respond? Mission notice has been activated. Mission notice. Reference warning. Seol-Hwi was distracted by something new just before he attacked. He couldn't just ignore it, seeing as it had come up while time was frozen. You will not be able to learn the technique if you do not capture Mugi. You will not receive the mission from Seol-Hwi warrior training if you use demonic martial arts. You will not receive the mission from Seol-Hwi warrior training if you kill any people from the justice sects. Reference seemed to be conditions for this mission. Apparently he needed to capture the man without killing him or anyone from other sects, and without using demonic martial arts if he wanted the new mission. You will be penalized if Mugi doesn't use demonic martial arts. Mission fails if Siakdu dies. So he had to provoke Mugi into using the demonic sect's martial arts without getting Siakdu killed. When he'd finished reading, familiar options came up. Attack, use martial arts, use toolbox, approach the opponent. This is irritating. He had to be careful of what martial arts he used since they were in Chenggi. No one liked the demonic sect. Seol-Hwi's face had hardened at the mere mention of demonic martial arts. Seol-Hwi wasn't willing to give up on the next mission or the rewards from this mission, though. It'll be fine. I can handle this. Seol-Hwi picked the most efficient option. Approach the opponent. Seol-Hwi was immediately right behind Mugi. Before his opponent could react, he stabbed his sword into the man's stomach. It would have been no surprise if he took him down then and there, but he felt a strange sensation against his hand. He couldn't thrust with full force, and Mugi's body was somehow far away. Mugi, first disciple of Elder Beacon Health. 330,000, down arrow 70,000, slash 400,000 internal energy. 110,000, down arrow 10,000, slash 120,000 a success, but only a partial one. That really should have been a lethal blow. Perhaps he used some kind of defensive technique. Ah, a fight. That man pulled a weapon on young Lord Zhang. Stop him, he might die. Mugi stood in the middle of the chaotic crowd and glared at Seol-Hwi. Seol-Hwi casually smiled back as if he didn't have a worry in the world. A great opportunity. Found a weakness in Mugi. How will you respond? The difference in their skill was giving Seol-Hwi a plethora of opportunities. The skill gap was blatantly obvious. Seol-Hwi could break through every defense Mugi put up, and even the smallest attack was doing huge damage. Mugi, first disciple of Elder Beacon Health. 210,000, down arrow 120,000, slash 400,000 internal energy. 80,000, down arrow 30,000, slash 120,000 S-stop. In the end, Mugi dropped to his knees and surrendered, but Seol-Hwi had no intention of stopping. After almost half-killing him, Seol-Hwi wasn't interested in making him talk anymore. However, there was a variable. Young Lord Zhang, hurry! Over here. Dozens of warriors gathered around him. From the looks of it, they were Zhu Wanzhou's warriors. Things went awry from there. Weaknesses kept popping up because Seol-Hwi didn't want to fight them. There were so many notifications he couldn't see anything else. Seol-Hwi easily dodged their attacks, but they pushed him back through sheer numbers. Unfortunately, the mission would not let him be more active. Damn it, where are you hiding? Mugi had hidden somewhere while Seol-Hwi was busy. He looked around, but he couldn't see anything through the endless stacks of notifications. Unbearable. Seol-Hwi decided it was time to change his combat type. Combat type. An analysis window appeared in front of his eyes. Oh, wait. It occurred to Seol-Hwi that it might be okay if Seokdu attacked them instead. There were no warnings about him, so the mission wouldn't be affected even if Seokdu killed someone. When he looked back, Seokdu was staring at him blankly. What do we do, squad leader? Is that guy Mugi? Shut up. You take care of these people. Huh, oh yeah. Seokdu dived in. With his skills, he'd have no problem taking care of a normal warrior. Don't kill them if possible. Seol-Hwi took a few steps back and looked around for Mugi but ran into an unexpected problem. Impossible. Turn-based combat has already been used and cannot be reversed. He couldn't use his techniques in simulation mode, but it turned out he couldn't switch back to turn-based. HMPH. Now that he thought about it, he'd already been told this. This is getting messy. He'd have to search this place the hard way. This is the worst. Kuaek ag. Seol-Hwi's head snapped around at the sudden scream and saw the crowd scattering in all directions. In the meantime, two warriors emerged and rushed at him. Where are you going? You won't go any further. Seol-Hwi lightly struck them with the hilt of his sword and then ran over to the disturbance. He found a corpse that looked like its life had been sucked out. Is this an internal energy siphoning technique? Only the demonic sect used techniques like this. It was Mugi's doing, no doubt. He was trying to recover his internal energy. Where is he hiding? Seol-Hwi couldn't find any traces of Mugi. The crowd was making it difficult. Ah, people are dead here too. Seol-Hwi heard more screams nearby and quickly ran over to find two more corpses in similar condition. Warrior, he went over there. An old man with a bent back pointed. Where? There, that way. Seol-Hwi craned his head to look, but then suddenly the simulation came to life. Dozens of illusions leapt out. Jump. Jump. Why? Seol-Hwi felt a burning sensation on his waist and spun around, clapping his hand over his torso. Damn it! The old man had done a surprise attack. Mugi had almost seriously wounded Seol-Hwi in his carelessness. Fortunately, his armor and constant vigilance had saved him from a fatal wound. I will catch you. Mugi could transform into anyone and blend into the people. There were so many still wandering around and watching the situation. It couldn't get worse than this. There was another scream not far away, and Seol-Hwi hurried over. Once again, there was a drained corpse, but there was a woman and child standing nearby. Did you see him? I didn't, she said, waving her hand. But Seol-Hwi didn't trust her and snatched her hand. No demonic martial arts. All he felt was her rapid pulse. She hadn't been trained in any martial arts. He looked around, this time sweeping his gaze over the entire area. He felt something from behind. Ha! Reflexively, Seol-Hwi swung his sword at the woman. However, she was already a withered corpse, and the child was gone. Damn it, his transfiguration skill could do that. Changing his face was one thing, but changing his body shape was too much. Fuck this! Seol-Hwi touched his waist and scowled. The injury was quite serious this time. If he was a little slower, it could have been fatal. Everyone, stop fighting. Stand down, the servants too, not just the warriors. Ju Wangel appeared as if he realized something was wrong and stopped the warriors, then went over to the middle-aged man who appeared to be in charge of the warriors. Did a demon appear? Right, women and children's lives are being drained. Ju Wangel turned to Saw. Did he really say he was after a demon who could change his face? Yes, father. He told me when we first met. He turned back to the middle-aged man. Where is young Lord Zheng? He disappeared from the fight. When I think about it, young Lord Zheng seems... He trailed off. He saw something so absurd that he had no words. Neither did Seol-Hwi. Who are you? Who are? Two men were fighting. They growled at each other murderously. One of them caught sight of Seol-Hwi and turned. Squad leader, this man is fake. No, squad leader, I'm Seokdu. Seokdu was pointing at Seokdu. One of them was fake. One. Mugi hunched over the desk light and drew the brush over the paper. However, this was no simple writing. The man carefully wrote each character with utmost care. Occasionally, when he thought the letters were not clear enough, he would nervously look at the guard standing next to him. Continue, and then his brush would start moving again. Quite some time passed this way. It's done. Mugi was bleeding everywhere except his mouth and right arm. Right, you worked hard. Seokdu grabbed his chin. Yes, he immediately gripped Mugi's chin, making the man go red with fright. Are you going to bust the other one too? And no. Still, he deserves a beating. Seokdu clenched his hand, and Mugi's neck went stiff. Satisfied, Seokdu shoved him aside. Mugi groaned and let his head fall. Seol-Hwi gave him a dark look. Don't act pitiful, you suck the energy out of people. I didn't mean to, it was all I was taught. Seol-Hwi lifted his leg threateningly, and Mugi hastily turned his head back to the paper and went back to writing even though no one had told him to. After a while, Seol-Hwi went to look at the paper. When will it be done? Mugi didn't have any kind of secret weapon, so Seol-Hwi figured he'd at least get the transfiguration technique out of him. It will be done soon. Is that so? Seol-Hwi nodded, but then he thought of something. Why did you transform into that man, Zhang? Don't use your head. Just give me an honest answer. I wanted to start a new life. What? Seol-Hwi gave him a confounded look. I didn't want to do such things anymore. I just wanted to live a normal life without my past dragging me down. You're insane. You think someone who goes around sucking the internal energy out of people can live with normal people. That's why, Mugi teared up. That's why I wanted to do more. His facial expression made Seol-Hwi uncomfortable, so he turned the conversation elsewhere. Why did you move around using the technique then? Huh. What are you talking about? The secret book, the one you received from Elder Beacon. The latent image projection? Don't act small. What was that? Latent image projection? Seol-Hwi's eyes widened. Was that why? He thought that Mugi had used the transfiguration technique to make himself look like a small child, but it turned out to be latent image projection. A normal transfiguration technique wouldn't make your body smaller. That was why he wanted the technique. Heartbreakingly, there were too many enemies there for Seol-Hwi to get in, unless he knew this martial art. When he emerged with Mugi, the people of the mansion were waiting. In particular, Ju Wangel and Ju Seol-Hwi looked eager to get their hands on the shape-shifting demon. I don't know how to thank you. Unlike before, Ju Wangel acted respectful. No doubt he felt a great sense of relief when he and his daughter were saved from the demon's deception. You don't have to thank me. I was just doing my job. Seol-Hwi glanced expressionlessly at Mugi, who lay on the shoulders of Seokdu. You have learned transfiguration. You have mastered the latent image projection technique. Seol-Hwi was a little taken aback when he learned the martial art. It let him change everything from his face to his voice to his hair. The only impossibility was his skeleton and eyes. That was also why Mugi had chosen Zheng Muyon as his new identity. Warrior, will you come again? Ju Seol-Hwi's musical voice touched his ears. I will, Seol-Hwi nodded. I have a reason after all. A reason? Well, just something. Seol-Hwi glanced at the mission floating over her head. Special notes. Mission 2, warrior training. There were 2 things he needed for his warrior training, and of course he wasn't going to let that escape from him. I'm off then. I can't convince you to stay for a meal. Seol-Hwi shook his head firmly. He had no time for breaks. He still had 4 more missions to do. He could rest once his warrior training was done and dusted. He bowed slightly. Let's go, he said to Seokdu. He looked up and down and found a glowing return blinking at him. Do you want to return to your home? Yes/no. Satisfied with his work, Seol-Hwi hit yes. When he woke up, he was back in his room with an information window in front of him. However, it wasn't the same as usual. Who got Mugi? Seol-Hwi, an outstanding warrior under the Earth Demon. When that child is in serious danger someday, I will be there for him. Elder Beacon's regard for Seol-Hwi has become favorable. He could see Beacon's tearful face, something he'd never seen before. And then there was a string of numbers. Health increased by 10,000, internal energy increased by 10,000, combat power increased by 10,000 health. 710,000, up arrow 10,000, internal energy. 1.21 million, up arrow 10,000, combat power. 5.91 million, up arrow 10,000. It was a pleasure to see his stats go up, even though he didn't do much. 11 days passed during the mission. You may act freely in the remaining 17 days. If it took us 5 days to travel, Seol-Hwi eyed the date. 5 days to get there, 1 day to catch him, and another 5 days to get back. More remote areas like Sashin will take longer to travel there. What if the mission wasn't as short? If it took, say, 10 days to get to Sashin, he'd be on a tight schedule to get the mission done. Would it even be possible? I'll know once I try. Well, even if he thought about it, things probably wouldn't go as he expected. All he could do was make the best of his 17 free days. Okay. Now training. Seol-Hwi itched to practice his new martial arts. The Wind God technique, the new martial arts he hadn't had a chance to use, he wanted to try all of them. Just thinking about how strong he would be made him clap his hands. 17 days passed quickly. Seol-Hwi spent them very efficiently. It took him about 3 breaths to transform and 5 breaths to turn back. And no joke, he really could transform his face into a completely different one. He also noticed some limitations after a few days. The biggest one was that he couldn't use his full power. It also lowered the concentration he could put into practicing martial arts, because the technique consumed mental strength rather than internal energy. That was why Mugi had reverted to his real face to fight Seol-Hwi. Being able to shrink and stretch his body was more exhilarating than transfiguration. It could make him as tall as 9 feet or as small as a single foot. The limitation, however, was that it slowed him down. The combination martial arts shocked Seol-Hwi no less than 3 times. First was when he discovered he could create ice swords similar to sword energy, although the internal energy consumption was too severe for him to use it for long. Second was the sheer power. He could take down 2 or 3 masters at once through brute force. Combined with his speed, no one would be able to take him lightly. Third was the ability to create defensive ice sheets. It didn't even use a lot of internal energy, so he could use it regularly. Seol-Hwi was excited to see how much stronger it would be at the advanced level. He could see that he had a lot of growing to do. He wasn't good at close combat, but he tried it. If he didn't have a sword in hand, he'd at least have this. It wasn't just a flaming fist. The flames would devour his surroundings like they were alive. This, too, was dependent on his mastery. Seol-Hwi spent almost 10 days training to use the power of the Wind God. In a desperate effort, he managed to unleash the Wind God on the last day of his free time. I finally figured it out. At the same time, though, he felt a sense of danger. Even the slightest difference in movement would make the technique fail, and when he failed, it always left him open. The same went for a success. If he couldn't pinpoint the enemy's position, he was vulnerable to a counterattack. Phew! Seol-Hwi wrapped up the last of his 17 well-spent days and went to the door. It was time to get his next mission done. Take a mission, warrior training. Walk around. He did think about going to Chenggi for a while, but his desire for growth was stronger. He chose the mission. Earth Demon, 4th disciple of the Heavenly Demon. Hyukgu, leader of Hidden Truth Squad. Jiokpa, Hidden Truth Squad head instructor. Doctor who treated Seol-Hwi. The servant had disappeared. Seol-Hwi decided after a moment of thought. The building collapsed around him and trees arose from the ground. Seol-Hwi found himself in the middle of an unknown mountain. A full moon rose in the darkness, illuminating the trees and grass around him. Even the wetlands the hillside overlooked were vast. And there, an unexpected situation arose. Seol-Hwi looked around and immediately realized what he needed to do. In the distance, a figure the size of a millet ran across the mountain. Above his head was a... On top of that, there were dozens of people chasing after him.